My parents disowned my pregnant sister and drove her out into a storm, but what I found in her motel room sent my entire family spiraling into chaos. My life as a Carrington meant perfection on the surface, silence beneath, until that midnight call from Savannah changed everything. They threw me out, she sobbed, 8 months pregnant and abandoned at a roadside motel by our own parents. I'd spent years editing other people's stories, but nothing prepared me for what I found in room 17. My sister was unconscious on the floor, bruises on her arm, and a stranger's phone with missed calls from someone named Ryder. One night, one discovery, and suddenly I was plunging into a world of whistleblowers, government conspiracies, and family betrayals. Our parents had taught us that Carrington women don't make scenes, but they were about to learn what happens when Carrington sisters decide to fight back. I've always been the type to keep my phone on silent. Something about constant notifications makes my skin crawl. But that night, that stormy Friday night in October, I wish I'd heard my phone ring. Maybe things would have turned out differently if I had. My name is Elise Carrington, 34, single, and perfectly content with my freelance editing business in Richmond. The kind of woman who finds peace in solitude and prefers the company of books over most people. My apartment isn't much, a one-bedroom overlooking the James River, but it's mine. No Carrington family portraits on the walls, no reminders of where I came from. The rain had been relentless that evening. I'd fallen asleep on my couch around 10 o'clock, manuscript pages scattered across my chest, reading glasses askew. When I finally stirred at nearly 1 in the morning, my neck was stiff and my apartment had that eerie stillness that comes after a storm. That's when I saw it, the blinking notification, one voicemail. Savannah, my baby sister, 8 years younger, infinitely softer. Where I'd grown thorns to survive our childhood, Savannah had somehow managed to keep her gentle spirit intact. Even now at 26, she had this dreamy quality about her, the kind of person who still believed in fairy tales despite growing up in our house of ice. I can still see her at 8 years old, hiding in my bedroom closet when our mother's dinner parties ran late. She'd curl up with her stuffed rabbit while I read her stories until she fell asleep. "Promise you'll always protect me, Ellie," she'd whisper, and I always promised, always. Our parents, Ruth and Edwin Carrington, were Richmond royalty. Father was a former state senator, mother, the perfect political wife turned society matriarch. Their estate in the West End sprawled across 3 acres, manicured gardens, marble fountains, rooms we weren't allowed to enter without permission. A house for show, not for living. There were rules for everything growing up: how to sit, how to speak, when to smile. Our mother's favorite phrase was, "Carrington women don't raise their voices. Don't wear their hearts on their sleeves. Don't embarrass the family." I hit play on Savannah's voicemail, expecting her usual cheerful update about wedding plans. What I heard instead turned my blood cold. "Elise." Her voice was broken, barely audible through sobs. "They threw me out. I didn't know where else to go. I'm at the Pinewood Motel off Highway 64, room 17. I'm scared. Elise, please." The message cut off. I immediately tried calling back, no answer. I tried 3 more times, my hands shaking as I paced my living room, straight to voicemail. This had to be some kind of mistake. Our parents were cold, but surely they wouldn't. I called the main house. Despite the hour, my mother answered on the second ring. Her voice was crisp, awake, as if she'd been waiting. "Elizabeth," she never called me Elise. "I assumed you'd call. What happened to Savannah?" My voice was tight, controlled, years of practice. "Your sister made her choices. We simply enforced consequences." "What choices, Mother?" "She's engaged. She's starting a life with Dean." A pause. "Was engaged. That young man disappeared 2 weeks ago, didn't he?" Rather convenient timing, I'd say. My grip tightened on the phone. "What are you talking about?" "Your sister is 8 months pregnant, Elizabeth, unmarried. The Andrews family has already withdrawn from the merger with your father's company. The damage is extensive." I couldn't process what I was hearing. "You threw your pregnant daughter out in a storm because of a business deal?" "We gave her options." My mother's voice was eerily calm. She refused them. What options? I demanded. That's between Savannah and us. Your father and I had no choice after what she did. She's your daughter. I shouted. And you're being hysterical. Call when you've composed yourself. The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, rage building in my chest. The familiar feeling of helplessness threatened to overwhelm me, but this time was different. This time, Savannah needed me. Within 15 minutes, I had thrown clothes into a duffel bag, grabbed my emergency cash, and was heading down to my car. The rain had started again, heavier now. The highways would be treacherous, but I didn't care. All I could think about was Savannah, alone and frightened, carrying a child. The Pinewood Motel was about an hour outside Richmond, a relic from the 1960s that had somehow survived the interstate expansions, the kind of place that charged by the week and didn't ask questions. It was nearly 3 in the morning when I pulled into the cracked parking lot, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. Room 17 was at the far end of the L-shaped building. The neon vacancy sign cast an eerie red glow across puddles as I splashed my way to her door. I knocked. Nothing. Savannah, it's me. It's Elise. Silence. I knocked harder, calling her name. A door opened 2 rooms down. An older man in a stained undershirt squinted at me before muttering something and disappearing back inside. Fear clawed at my throat. I ran to the office, pounding on the glass until a sleepy-eyed clerk appeared. My sister's in room 17. She's not answering. She's pregnant. Please, I need you to open the door. He hesitated, eyeing my soaked clothes, my wild eyes. Please, I begged. I think something's wrong. Whether it was genuine concern or just wanting to get back to sleep, he grabbed a master key and followed me through the rain. The key stuck in the lock, and for a moment I thought it wouldn't open. Then the door swung inward. The room was dim, lit only by the bathroom light. The air smelled of cheap cleaning products and something else, something medicinal. Savannah. That's when I saw her. My sister was lying on the worn carpet between the bed and the wall. Her golden hair was spread around her head like a halo, her face ghostly pale. One arm was flung outward, angry purple bruises visible even in the dim light. Her other hand rested protectively over her swollen belly. Call an ambulance. I screamed, dropping to my knees beside her. She was breathing, but barely conscious. Her eyelids fluttered as I cradled her head. Ellie, she whispered. I knew you'd come. As the motel clerk fumbled with his phone, something caught my attention, a buzzing sound. A phone on the nightstand, not Savannah's pink iPhone, but a black nondescript model I'd never seen before. I reached for it, checking if it might be Dean's. The screen was locked, but I could see the notification, multiple missed calls from a contact labeled only as Writer A. I stared at the phone, then back at my sister's bruised arm, her ashen face. What had happened here? And whose phone was this? Something told me our parents' dismissal of Dean's disappearance wasn't a coincidence. Nothing ever was with the Carringtons. As sirens wailed in the distance, I made a silent promise to Savannah and her unborn child. This time, I wouldn't just protect them. This time, I'd fight back. The ambulance lights painted the motel walls in pulses of red and white as paramedics rushed to attend to Savannah. I held her hand the entire ride to the hospital, watching her chest rise and fall with shallow breaths. Her engagement ring caught the light, a modest diamond that our mother had once called disappointingly practical. Now it hung loose on her finger. BP's low but stable, one paramedic said. How far along is she? About 8 months, I answered, not taking my eyes off Savannah's face. The baby? Is the baby okay? He pressed a stethoscope to her belly. Fetal heartbeat is strong. Let's get her to the hospital. Richmond Memorial was quiet at 4 in the morning. The emergency room doctor, a woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, diagnosed Savannah with mild dehydration and stress-induced syncope. We'll keep her overnight for observation, but she should be fine. The baby, too. Relief washed over me, followed immediately by rage. I couldn't stop thinking about our parents throwing her out. About those bruises on her arm that the doctor had gently documented with photographs, about the mystery phone that now sat heavy in my jacket pocket. Once Savannah was settled in a room with fluids dripping steadily, I made a decision. I squeezed her hand, whispering, "I'll be back soon," and drove straight to my parents' house. The Carrington estate was already stirring when I arrived. Lights blazed from the kitchen where Marta, the housekeeper who'd been with my parents for 20 years, would be preparing my father's precise breakfast: 2 soft-boiled eggs, whole grain toast, black coffee. I didn't ring the bell. My old key still worked. My mother was in the sunroom, reading, glasses perched on her nose, reviewing some charity gala seating chart. She looked up when I entered, her expression shifting from surprise to careful neutrality. "Elizabeth, it's barely 6. To what do we owe this dramatic entrance?" "Savannah's in the hospital," I kept my voice flat. "In case you were wondering." Something flickered in her eyes, concern, fear, but it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. "Is she all right?" "No, thanks to you." I stepped closer. "What really happened, Mother? Why does she have bruises? Who was with her at that motel?" "I'm sure I don't know what you're implying." She removed her glasses, folding them carefully. "Your sister was distraught when she left. Perhaps she fell." Don't you dare." My voice shook. "You threw your pregnant daughter out in the middle of the night. Why? Because she embarrassed you? Because some business deal fell through? You always were prone to oversimplification." My mother stood, smoothing her silk robe. "It's about legacy, not love, something you've never understood." My father appeared in the doorway, impeccable in his tailored suit despite the early hour. His silver hair was perfectly combed, but his eyes, usually sharp with authority, avoided mine. "Ruth," he said quietly. "We should speak privately." I blocked his path. "No. No more secrets, Father. Savannah could have lost her baby last night, your grandchild." Something in his face changed, a crack in the perfect Carrington facade. But my mother moved between us. "Your sister made choices that endangered this family," she said. "When Dean disappeared, we offered her options. She refused them." "What options?" I demanded. "A private facility in Vermont," my father finally spoke, discreet. "The child would have been placed with a suitable family. Savannah could have returned afterward, resumed her life, started fresh." The implications hit me like a physical blow. "You wanted her to give up her baby to hide away like some shameful secret." "We wanted to protect her," my mother insisted. "That boy is gone. Elizabeth, he abandoned her, just disappeared after meeting with your father about a position in the company." I turned to my father. "You met with Dean before he vanished?" He straightened his already perfect tie. "A formality. The young man wasn't suitable, but your sister was insistent. And now he's conveniently gone." I stepped closer, searching his face. "What did you do?" "That's enough." My mother's voice could have frozen flame. "If you've come here to hurl accusations, you can leave. We've done what's best for this family, as we always have." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "This family? You mean your reputation, your social standing, your precious legacy." I turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Savannah and her baby are my family now. Stay away from them, both of you." My father called after me, something softening in his voice. "Elizabeth, wait." But I was already gone. Back at the hospital, Savannah was awake, looking small against the white sheets. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Ellie. I didn't know where else to go." I sat beside her, taking her hand. "Don't apologize. Not ever. Tell me what happened, everything." She bit her lip, then nodded. "Dean's been different these past few months, jumpy, checking over his shoulder. 2 weeks ago, he said someone was following him. I thought he was being paranoid, but then," her voice broke. "He didn't come home. His clothes were still there, his car, but he was just gone." "Did you go to the police?" She nodded. They said adults go missing all the time, that he probably just left. Her hand moved protectively over her belly. But he wouldn't leave us. I know he wouldn't. And the bruises? I asked gently. Her eyes clouded. I don't remember. I went to that motel because Dean had stayed there before. I thought maybe he left something, some clue, but when I got there, the room was already paid for in his name, like he knew I'd come looking. A chill ran down my spine. Savannah, did Dean ever mention someone called Ryder? Her brow furrowed. No. Why? I pulled out the black phone. This was in your room. It's not yours, is it? She shook her head, eyes wide. I've never seen it before. While Savannah rested, I stepped into the hospital hallway and called Terry, an IT specialist friend who occasionally helped with my more tech-heavy editing projects. I explained the situation, minus the family drama. Bring it by my place, he said. I might be able to get past the lock, no promises, though. As I hung up, a nurse approached me. Miss Carrington, your sister left something in her personal effects. She handed me a weathered leather notebook. She said you should have it. I flipped through the pages, my heart racing. It wasn't Savannah's flowing script but a messier hand I didn't recognize, pages of scribbled notes, addresses, initials, maps with locations circled, and one page dog-eared and underlined, "They'll come for her if I'm gone." I froze, reading those words again. They'll come for her if I'm gone. What had Dean gotten himself into? And why would anyone come after Savannah? Later that afternoon, Terry texted me to come over. His apartment was a tech paradise, multiple monitors, gadgets in various states of dissection. He handed me the black phone, now unlocked. Whoever owns this was serious about security, he said, but they weren't expecting someone with my skills. The self-satisfaction in his voice would have made me smile any other day. I scrolled through the messages. Most were cryptic, single sentences exchanged with a contact labeled Ryder, perimeter secure. Northwest quadrant compromised. Relocate. New papers ready Tuesday. And then, sent the day before Dean disappeared, they found me. Stay hidden. Protect her. Terry watched me, eyes curious behind his glasses. Your sister's boyfriend in some kind of trouble? I don't know, I murmured, opening the photo gallery. There weren't many pictures, mostly landscapes, blurry shots of license plates, a few surveillance-style photos of men in suits, and then one selfie, Dean, his arm around someone whose face was cut off. The caption made my blood run cold. Leo Martinez, 2021, whistleblower program successful. Leo Martinez. I stared at the familiar face of the man my sister had planned to marry. Dean Wilson, the quiet, earnest architectural designer from Seattle, was someone else entirely. I thanked Terry and headed back to the hospital, my mind racing. Dean had been living under a false identity, but why? And what did it have to do with Savannah? When I reached her room, I hesitated before showing her the photo. Her face crumpled in confusion. Leo Martinez? I don't understand. That's Dean. That's the father of my baby, Savannah, I said gently. I think Dean was hiding from something or someone. Did he ever mention a whistleblower program? Anything about his past? She shook her head, tears welling. He said he was from Seattle, that his parents died in a car accident when he was in college, that he wanted to start fresh in Virginia. Her hand trembled. Was it all lies? Everything? I sat beside her, squeezing her hand. I don't think so. I think he was protecting you. Look at this. I showed her the notebook page. They'll come for her if I'm gone. I think he cared about you, about both of you, enough to hide whatever this is. As Savannah drifted off to sleep, exhausted from the revelations, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Leave the past alone or she'll pay the price. I stared at the message. Fear and determination warred inside me. Whoever sent this didn't know the Carrington sisters very well. We'd been paying prices our whole lives. The morning light filtered through the hospital blinds, casting zebra stripes across Savannah's sleeping form. I'd spent the night in the visitor's chair, my neck stiff. The mysterious phone and notebook spread across my lap. The anonymous threat still glowed on my own phone screen. I tried tracing the number, but it led nowhere, a burner phone, most likely. While Savannah slept, I did what I do best, research. My laptop balanced precariously on the windowsill as I typed Leo Martinez whistleblower into the search bar. The results made my heart race. Leo Martinez, former defense contractor with Velcro Dynamics. In 2021, he provided evidence of illegal surveillance operations conducted by the private military firm on American soil. He'd entered witness protection after threats to his life and then disappeared from public record. He disappeared until he became Dean Wilson and fell in love with my sister. I glanced at Savannah, her hand protectively curved over her belly even in sleep. Had she ever known? Had she fallen in love with a ghost? The doctor came in to check Savannah's vitals, confirming both she and the baby were stable. "We'd like to keep her another night for observation," she said. "Make sure the stress levels don't trigger early labor." I nodded, grateful. It would give me time. Opening the notebook again, I studied the addresses Dean had scribbled down, 3 locations in rural Virginia, all within a few hours' drive. Cabins, safe houses. I needed to find out. Savannah stirred, her eyes finding mine. "You're still here." "Always," I promised. "How are you feeling?" Like my whole life was a lie. Her voice was small, but there was a new hardness there, a Carrington edge I'd never heard from her before. "I need to know the truth, Ellie, about Dean or Leo or whoever he is." I showed her what I'd found online. She absorbed it silently, one hand absently stroking her belly. "So he was hiding," she finally said. "But from what?" "The article says the case was settled. The company was sanctioned. Maybe there's more to it." I pointed to the notebook. "These addresses, I think they might be places he stayed." "Safe houses." Her eyes widened. "You think he might be at one of them?" I didn't want to give her false hope, but I couldn't lie. "I don't know, but it's somewhere to start." Savannah tried to swing her legs over the bed. "I'm coming with you." "No." I gently pushed her back. "You need to rest. Think of the baby." "But I promise I'll tell you everything I find." I squeezed her hand. "Trust me, Vanna, like when we were kids." That nickname, one I hadn't used in years, made her eyes well with tears. She nodded. "Take the notebook," she whispered. "And be careful, Ellie. If someone's after Dean, they might come after you too." I kissed her forehead, tucking the notebook and the black phone into my bag. At the door, I turned back. "If Mom and Dad try to visit, I'll tell them to go to hell," she said with surprising firmness. In the politest Carrington way, of course. I couldn't help but smile. That's my girl. The first address led me to a dilapidated hunting cabin near the Blue Ridge Mountains. The dirt road was barely visible, overgrown with weeds and fallen branches. I parked my car a quarter-mile away and approached on foot, every sense alert. The cabin looked abandoned at first glance, windows dusty, porch sagging. But when I circled around back, I noticed fresh tire tracks in the mud. Someone had been here recently. The back door was locked but yielded easily to my credit card, a trick I'd learned in college, not that I'd ever admitted that to my law-abiding parents. Inside, the cabin was sparse but clean. No dust on the surfaces, a generator in the corner, canned food in the cupboards, and on the kitchen table, a map marked with the same locations from the notebook plus several others. Someone had been tracking movements, safe houses, maybe drop points. I took photos of everything with my phone, then searched the small bedroom. The closet held men's clothes, roughly Dean's size. In the nightstand drawer, I found an empty gun holster and a stack of burner phones still in their packaging. Whatever Dean was involved in, it wasn't small. As I was about to leave, something caught my eye, a loose floorboard beneath the bed. I pried it up to find a waterproof case containing a laptop and several flash drives. I was contemplating whether to take them when my phone buzzed, unknown number. "Get out now." Black SUV coming up the road. I froze, heart pounding. Whoever had my number knew where I was. I shoved the laptop and one flash drive into my bag and replaced the floorboard. Through the grimy window, I could see dust rising from the road, a vehicle approaching. I slipped out the back door and into the woods, circling wide to reach my car. As I drove away, I glimpsed a black SUV parked outside the cabin. Two men in dark clothing entered, hands inside their jackets. My hands shook on the steering wheel. This was real. This was dangerous. What had I gotten myself into? Back on the main highway, I pulled over at a truck stop to examine the laptop. It was password protected, of course, but the flash drive wasn't. I plugged it into my own laptop, finding a single document, a list of names and locations. Most meant nothing to me, but one jumped out: Edwin Carrington, 2018 Project Oversight. My father. What connection did he have to all this? Was it just a coincidence that Dean had ended up with a Carrington daughter? I stared at the screen, pieces clicking together. My father, the former senator, his consulting work after leaving office. Dean's sudden appearance in Richmond 2 years ago when Savannah had met him at a charity event, one of my father's pet projects. My phone buzzed again with another text from the unknown number. Call this number when you're alone. Ask for Ryder. I drove for another hour, making sure I wasn't followed, before pulling into an empty rest stop. With trembling fingers, I dialed. A woman answered on the first ring. You shouldn't be involved in this. Her voice was clipped, professional. Where did you find the phone? Pinewood Motel, room 17, I said. Are you Maya Voss? A sharp intake of breath. How do you know that name? I don't. It was a guess, a bluff based on nothing but instinct. But you're Ryder, aren't you? Dean's handler. Silence. Then, meet me. Northside Coffee Shop. 2 hours. She hung up. The coffee shop was busy enough to provide cover but quiet enough for conversation. I spotted her immediately, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and the careful posture of someone accustomed to watching her back. She wore a faded denim jacket and no makeup, her dark hair pulled into a simple ponytail. She didn't smile as I sat across from her. You're either very brave or very stupid, Elise Carrington. Probably both, I admitted. You know who I am. I know everything about you, about your family. Her gaze was clinical. Including the fact that your father consulted for Velcro Dynamics from 2017 to 2019. I kept my expression neutral, though my heart hammered. What does that have to do with Dean, with Leo? Leo Martinez blew the whistle on Velcro's domestic surveillance program. Your father was on the oversight committee that should have caught it. She stirred her coffee. When Leo entered witness protection, he was supposed to disappear completely, new name, new state, new life. But he came to Virginia instead, I said. Why? Because he's a damn fool. Anger flashed in her eyes. He thought he found something bigger, something that implicated people higher up than just Velker. He went off-grid against my explicit instructions. She leaned forward. And then he fell in love with a Carrington. Of all the people in the world, you think it wasn't a coincidence, do you? She countered. I thought about it, about the careful way my father had avoided my eyes when I confronted him, about my mother's cold dismissal of Dean's disappearance. No, I finally said. I don't. Maya nodded. Leo is in danger. And now so is your sister. She's leverage. Against what? Against a case Leo's been building for years, evidence that could implicate dozens of people, including possibly your father. The realization hit me like a blow. Is that why they threw Savannah out? Because they knew who Dean really was, or because they found out he was getting too close to something they wanted buried? Maya's eyes were sympathetic now. Your sister's pregnancy complicated things, made her vulnerable. Those bruises on her arm weren't from your parents, Maya finished. Someone got to her before you did, probably looking for information on Leo. Rage and fear quilled in my stomach. How do I find him? How do I keep Savannah safe? You don't. You walk away. Let professionals handle this. Like you handled Dean's protection? I shot back. Her jaw tightened. You have no idea what you're getting into. Then tell me. I pulled out my phone, showing her the photo of the map I'd found. What are these locations? Safe houses. She studied it, then looked up sharply. Where did you get this? The cabin, first address in the notebook. You've been there? This morning, I nodded. 2 men showed up in a black SUV. Damn it. She stood abruptly. We need to go now. Wait, what about Dean? Where is he? If he's alive, he's in the wind. She grabbed her jacket. Check your email, the account on that phone. There's a message in the drafts folder. If anything happens to me, check the ivory box. What's the ivory box? I don't know. But whatever Leo found, whatever he was hiding from, it's big enough that people are willing to kill for it. She headed for the door, then paused. Be careful who you trust, Elise, even family. After she left, I sat there, mind racing. The ivory box. What could it be? And where? Then it hit me, the motel room. I hadn't searched it thoroughly. I drove back to the Pinewood Motel, my heart pounding. The same clerk was working, recognition dawned on his tired face. Your sister okay? He asked. She will be, I said. I need to check her room again. Room 17. He hesitated, then handed me a key. Still vacant, haven't had time to clean it yet. The room looked exactly as it had when we'd found Savannah, bed unmade, her small overnight bag still beside it. I searched methodically, checking under the mattress, in the drawers, behind the nightstand. Nothing. I stood in the center of the room, turning slowly. What was I missing? The ivory box. My eyes landed on the air vent near the ceiling. It was slightly askew. I dragged the desk chair over and climbed up, heart racing as I pried the vent cover loose. Inside was a small white box with ivory inlays, an antique jewelry case. I recognized it immediately. It had been Savannah's, a gift from our grandmother. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were photographs, 2 USB drives, and a handwritten list of names, including my father's. Each name had a date and a dollar amount next to it. As I climbed down from the chair, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I wasn't alone. Through the thin curtains, I saw a shadow move across the parking lot, a man in a black hoodie watching the room. I shoved the box into my bag and took a deep breath. Whatever Dean had uncovered, whatever danger Savannah was in, I was now in the middle of it too. And there was no turning back. The man in the black hoodie was still watching the motel room. I clutched the ivory box to my chest, mind racing. There was no way out except through the front door, directly into his line of sight. I pulled out my phone and called the front desk. Hey, it's the woman from room 17. Is there a back exit near this room? Fire door at the end of the hall, the clerk said. But it'll set off the alarm. That's fine. I think someone's watching my room. I heard shuffling, then, tall guy in the black hoodie? He asked about you earlier, said he was a friend. My blood went cold. I don't know him. Call the police. Already dialing, the clerk said. I could hear the sudden concern in his voice. I slipped out into the hallway, hurrying toward the fire exit. The alarm blared as I pushed through, sprinting around the building to my car. Through the commotion, I glimpsed the man in the hoodie running in the opposite direction. 20 minutes later, I was on the highway, hands still shaking on the steering wheel. I needed somewhere safe to examine the contents of the ivory box, somewhere no one would look for me. The list of names found in the box was more extensive than I'd first realized. Most were unfamiliar, but a few jumped out: Edwin Carrington, my father, Senator James Whitaker, General Thomas Benton, and several high-ranking officials from various federal agencies. Next to each name was a series of dates and substantial dollar amounts, hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. At the bottom of the page, a single line was written in Dean's handwriting: Velcro Dynamics Project Insight 2018 to 2021. I remembered reading about Velker in my earlier research. They were a private military firm blacklisted after a federal scandal, the very scandal Leo Martinez had blown the whistle on. Was my father connected to that same scandal? The dates matched his consulting period. I pulled into a roadside diner, ordered coffee, and plugged one of the USB drives into my laptop. It contained dozens of video files, surveillance footage, recorded phone calls, meetings in shadowy boardrooms. In one, I clearly saw my father shaking hands with a man identified in the file name as Ker_co_car. I watched with growing horror as the conversation unfolded. They discussed domestic intelligence gathering and preemptive citizen monitoring. My father nodded along, offering suggestions about legislative protection and oversight workarounds. My phone buzzed with a text from Savannah. "Where are you?" "Hospital releasing me tomorrow morning." I couldn't bring her into this, not yet, not when I didn't understand what we were dealing with. I texted back, "Working on something. We'll pick you up tomorrow. Rest." Then I booked a remote Airbnb under a false name using cash. If someone was tracking me, I needed to disappear just for a little while until I could make sense of everything. The Airbnb was a small cabin about an hour outside Richmond, secluded enough to feel safe but close enough to civilization that I wouldn't feel completely isolated. I spent the night reviewing the files Dean had collected. The picture became clearer with each document. Velker had been contracted to develop surveillance technology for military use overseas, but they'd secretly deployed it domestically as well, monitoring private citizens, gathering data without warrants. When Leo Martinez discovered this, he went public, triggering a federal investigation. The company was sanctioned. Executives resigned. Case closed, except it wasn't closed for Dean. He'd kept digging, finding connections to politicians, military officials, and business leaders who had benefited from the program, including, apparently, my father. The next morning, I picked up Savannah from the hospital. She looked better, some color had returned to her cheeks, and the bruises on her arm were fading to a sickly yellow. "You found something," she said immediately, searching my face. "I can tell." I nodded, helping her into my car. "It's complicated and not safe to talk about here." On the drive to the Airbnb, I filled her in on the basics: Dean's real identity, the whistleblowing, Velker dynamics. I left out our father's involvement for now. She was already dealing with enough. "So Dean was hiding from these people," she said, hands protectively cradling her belly. "But why come to Richmond? Why get involved with me?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe he was using me to get to Dad," she finished quietly. "That's what you're thinking, isn't it?" I reached over and squeezed her hand. "I don't know what to think yet, but I'm going to find out the truth." At the Airbnb, I helped Savannah settle in before showing her the ivory box and its contents. Her face paled as she read through the list of names. "Dad's involved in this." Her voice was barely audible. "All those times he dismissed Dean, said he wasn't good enough for me, was it because he knew? Because he was afraid Dean would expose him?" "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe he didn't know who Dean really was, but Dean was investigating him." Savannah's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what's worse." Neither did I. That afternoon, I contacted a local reporter named Nico Greer. I'd edited several of his investigative pieces over the years, work exposing political corruption and corporate malfeasance. If anyone would know how to handle this information, it would be Nico. We agreed to meet at a public park the next day. I arrived early, scanning for anything suspicious, but the park was quiet, just a few joggers and mothers with strollers. Nico arrived right on time, his lanky frame and perpetually rumpled clothes a familiar sight. His eyes lit up when he saw me, then dimmed as he registered my expression. "This isn't a social call, is it?" he asked, sitting beside me on the bench. "I need your help," I said. "It's about Velker dynamics." His eyebrows shot up. "The surveillance scandal?" "That was years ago. The case isn't closed, not completely." I handed him a flash drive containing copies of some of Dean's files. "I need to know if this is legitimate, and I need to know how dangerous it would be to go public with it." Nico pocketed the drive. Where did you get this? I can't tell you that yet, but it might be connected to a missing person, someone important to my family. He studied me for a long moment. This is serious, isn't it? Deadly serious, I said. People are already being hurt. I'll look into it, he promised. Give me a couple of days. Those couple of days stretched into an anxious waiting game. Savannah and I stayed at the Airbnb, jumping at every sound outside. I disabled location services on our phones and paid for everything in cash. On the third day, my mother called. I almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, maybe, made me pick up. Elizabeth. Her voice was tense, lacking its usual cool control. Where are you? Where is Savannah? Safe, I said. Away from you and father. You need to come home, both of you, immediately. I laughed bitterly. After what you did, throwing out your pregnant daughter, trying to force her to give up her baby? You don't understand, she said, and for the first time in my life I heard fear in my mother's voice. There are things happening, things your father never meant to be part of. What things, mother? I can't explain over the phone. Please, Elizabeth, bring Savannah home where we can protect her. Like you protected her before? I demanded. She hesitated. A mistake. We thought we were keeping her safe from Dean, from whoever he really is. So you didn't know, I said quietly. Not everything, but enough to be concerned. She lowered her voice. Your father received threats after that boy disappeared. We thought if Savannah wasn't connected to us, she'd be safer. It was such twisted Carrington logic that I almost believed her, almost. We'll talk when I'm ready, I said finally. Not before. I hung up as Nico's number flashed on my screen. Elise, he sounded breathless. This is big, really big. We need to meet. We arranged to meet at his office that evening. I left Savannah at the Airbnb, promising to be back within a few hours. Nico's small office was in a converted warehouse downtown, the kind of place where startups and freelancers rented space. I took the freight elevator to the third floor, knocking on his door with our old pattern, 2 quick, 1 slow. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time, still nothing. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open slowly, calling Nico's name. The office was dark except for the glow of a computer screen. Papers were scattered everywhere. Drawers pulled open. Furniture overturned. My heart raced as I moved carefully through the destruction. Nico. A groan came from behind the desk. I rushed over to find Nico on the floor, blood matting his hair, one eye swollen shut. Jesus, Nico. I crouched beside him. What happened? They came for the drive, he mumbled. Right after I called you. Said they'd kill me if I published anything. Did they get it? He shook his head, wincing at the movement. Hidden inside my Star Wars mug. I looked up to see a Darth Vader mug on the bookshelf, conspicuously untouched among the chaos. I retrieved the drive while helping Nico to a chair. Hospital, I insisted. You need a doctor. No, he grabbed my arm. Not safe. They said they'd be watching. You need to go, take the files, all of them. He gestured to his computer. Downloaded everything. Made copies. It's all their names, dates, transactions. Your father's name is all over it, Elise. What exactly is it? I asked, dreading the answer. Project Insight. It wasn't just domestic surveillance, it was targeted blackmail. They gathered data on politicians, judges, business leaders, anyone with power or influence. Used it to control votes, decisions, contracts. His eyes were fierce despite his injuries. Your father wasn't just consulting. He was coordinating between Velker and the targets. The room seemed to tilt around me. Why? Why would he be involved in something like this? Money, power, the usual, Nico grimaced. But there's more. Dean, or Leo, whatever his name is, he found evidence the program never really shut down. It just went deeper underground. New company, new name, same people running it. And now they're after him, and Savannah, and you, Nico said grimly. You need to be careful. These people, they don't just threaten, they act. I helped clean him up as best I could, then downloaded the files from his computer. Before I left, Nico pressed a burner phone into my hand. My contact at the FBI, only person I trust with this. Call when you're ready to go public. I hugged him carefully, mindful of his injuries. Thank you, for everything. Just be careful, he said. And tell one hell of a story when this is over. When I returned to the Airbnb, I found the door slightly ajar. My heart stopped. Savannah, I called, pushing the door open wider. The living room was empty, but I could hear muffled sounds from the bedroom. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and moved quietly down the hall. The bedroom door was closed. I took a deep breath and flung it open. Savannah was huddled in the closet, her face streaked with tears. She'd wedged herself behind the hanging clothes, one hand over her mouth to muffle her sobs. Savannah, what happened? Someone was here, she whispered. They broke in while I was in the bathroom. I heard them searching the living room, so I hid. I helped her out of the closet, checking her for injuries. Did you see who it was? She shook her head, but they left something. She pointed to the bed. On the rumpled comforter lay a photograph, Dean, or Leo, sitting at an outdoor cafe, unaware of the camera. The picture had been taken recently. He had the same haircut he'd had when he disappeared. On the back, someone had written coordinates and today's date. He's alive, Savannah breathed. Elise, he's alive. I stared at the photo, hope and suspicion warring within me. It could be a trap. Or it could be him, she insisted, trying to reach out. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya, he's alive. But if you want to see him, you'll have to make a choice. The coordinates led to a remote cabin in West Virginia, a 5-hour drive from Richmond. Maya had sent additional instructions, come alone, no phones. Arrive after dark. It's too dangerous, I told Savannah. You can't come. Think of the baby. It's my fiancé, Elise, the father of my child. Her eyes were steady, determined. I'm coming. I knew that look, it was the same one I saw in the mirror when I'd made up my mind. The Carrington women might be taught to keep quiet, but once we found our voices, nothing could silence us again. Fine, I relented. But you stay in the car until I make sure it's safe. We left that night, taking back roads and switching vehicles twice, paranoid measures I'd picked up from too many spy novels, perhaps, but they made me feel safer. Savannah dozed in the passenger seat while I drove, one eye on the rearview mirror. Just outside Richmond, I made one final stop, the Carrington estate. I didn't tell Savannah, she was asleep, and I needed to do this alone. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She was dressed impeccably as always, but her eyes were red. Elizabeth, she said, relief washing over her face. You came back. Not for long, I said, stepping inside. I need to talk to Father. She led me to his study where he sat behind his massive oak desk. He looked older than I remembered, the lines in his face deeper. I know about Project Insight, I said without preamble. I know about Velker. I know what you did. He didn't deny it, didn't even look surprised. He simply opened a drawer and pulled out a check, sliding it across the desk toward me. For Savannah, he said. Enough to start over somewhere safe. No press, no noise. I picked up the check, the amount made my eyes widen, and then deliberately tore it in half, then quarters, then eighths, letting the pieces flutter back onto his desk. We don't want your money, I said. We want the truth. The truth, he echoed, a bitter smile touching his lips. The truth is I made a mistake, got involved with people I shouldn't have. When I tried to back out, they made it clear that wasn't an option. So you, what? Help them blackmail people? Spy on American citizens? I did what I had to do to protect this family. His voice hardened. When your sister started seeing that boy, when I realized who he really was, I tried to warn her away without telling her the truth. I thought I was protecting her by throwing her out when she was 8 months pregnant. That was your mother's idea, he said, not meeting my eyes. She thought if Savannah wasn't connected to us, they'd leave her alone. And it never occurred to you to go to the authorities, to do the right thing? He laughed, a hollow sound. The authorities are compromised. How do you think this operation has survived this long? There are people in every agency, every branch of government who benefit from Project Insight. I studied him, this man I'd feared and respected all my life. You're a coward. He flinched as if I'd struck him. I'm a pragmatist. There are forces at work here bigger than one family, bigger than your sister's broken heart. Dean is alive, I said. And I'm going to find him. My father's face drained of color. Don't. For God's sake, Elizabeth, stay out of this. Take your sister and go, Canada, Europe, anywhere. Just disappear like you wanted her to do. Hide away the shameful secret? I shook my head. That's not who we are anymore. As I turned to leave, he called after me. Elizabeth, be careful. These people, they don't make empty threats. Neither do I said, and closed the door behind me. Back in the car, Savannah was still asleep, one hand protectively cradling her belly. I brushed a strand of hair from her face, wondering if I was doing the right thing. Taking her into potential danger seemed reckless, but leaving her behind might be worse. We reached the coordinates shortly after midnight. The cabin was set deep in the woods, only a narrow dirt track leading to it, no lights visible from the outside. I parked a short distance away, turning to Savannah. Stay here. Lock the doors. If I'm not back in 15 minutes, drive away. There's a burner phone in the glove compartment with Miko's FBI contact programmed in. Elise, promise me, she nodded reluctantly. Be careful. I approached the cabin cautiously, every sense alert. When I reached the door, I knocked 3 short taps like Maya had instructed. The door opened slowly to reveal a tall, bearded man holding a shotgun, not Dean, not Maya. Hands where I can see them, he said quietly. I raised my hands. I'm looking for Dean Wilson, or Leo Martinez. Maya Voss sent me. The man studied me for a long moment, then stepped aside. Inside, quickly. The cabin was sparsely furnished but clean. A fire burned in the stone hearth, casting long shadows. At a table in the corner sat Maya, her expression grim, and beside her, Dean. I breathed his name. He looked different, thinner, with a beard and longer hair. A bandage wrapped his left forearm, and he moved stiffly as he stood. Elise. His voice was the same, though. Where's Savannah? Is she safe? She's in the car, I said. She's fine. The baby too. Relief flooded his face. Then he turned to the bearded man. Rami, bring her in, carefully. Rami nodded and slipped outside. What happened to you? I asked Dean. He gestured to his injuries. Velker's cleanup crew found me. I got away, but not before they left their mark. Maya stood, arms crossed. He's been hiding here for the past 2 weeks. I told him to stay put, but he insisted on reaching out once he heard about Savannah. She was in the hospital, I said. Someone hurt her. Dean's face darkened. I never wanted her involved in this, any of it. When I met her, I didn't know who she was, just this beautiful, kind woman who saw me, really saw me, for the first time in years. And when you found out she was Edwin Carrington's daughter? He had the grace to look ashamed. I should have walked away, but by then I was already in love. I told myself I could keep those worlds separate. Until you couldn't, I said. He nodded. Until I found evidence your father was deeper involved than anyone knew, until I realized Velker was still operational under a new name, until they started following me. The door opened and Rami entered with Savannah. She froze when she saw Dean, one hand flying to her mouth. Dean, she whispered. He crossed the room in 3 strides, gathering her in his arms as she broke down in tears. I'm so sorry, he murmured into her hair. I'm so sorry I left you. I turned away, giving them a moment of privacy. Maya stepped closer to me. We don't have much time, she said in a low voice. Velker, or whatever they're calling themselves now, they have a cleaner team looking for him, for all of us. What's the plan? I asked. We have evidence, names, dates, operations. Enough to blow this wide open, but we need to get it to the right people, people who aren't compromised. Nico gave me a contact at the FBI, I said, someone he trusts. Maya nodded. That's a start, but we need more, international coverage, multiple agencies. Once this goes public, they'll try to contain it, bury it. I have copies of everything, I told her, multiple backups, and Nico's already started compiling a story. They got to him too, she guessed, reading my expression. Beat him pretty badly, but he's still willing to help. Dean and Savannah joined us, his arm around her waist. We have less than 72 hours, he said, before Velker transfers their assets offshore, before the evidence becomes useless. I looked at Maya. What do we need to do? Make a choice, she said bluntly. Go public now with what we have, which puts all of us at risk, or wait, gather more evidence, build a stronger case. If we wait, Dean added, they might move everything, cover their tracks, we might lose our window. And if we go public now? I asked. We become targets, Maya said. All of us, but especially you two. She nodded toward Savannah and me. The Carrington daughters turning on their father, that's a story they'll want to silence. Savannah stepped forward, surprising us all. I want to go public. Savannah, Dean began. No. Her voice was firm. I've spent my entire life being quiet, following rules, hiding feelings because they weren't appropriate. I'm done hiding. I looked at my sister, this woman I'd always sought to protect, and saw a strength that matched my own. She's right, I said. We go public now. The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Dean and Maya worked with Nico's FBI contact while Rami helped secure communications. I compiled all the evidence, organizing it for maximum impact. We decided on a multi-pronged approach, simultaneous releases to 3 major news outlets, 2 international papers, and a data dump to a secure whistleblower site. The story would break wide open, too big to contain. The night before publication, Dean pulled me aside. There's something you should know, he said quietly. About your father. I steeled myself. What is it? He tried to get out, about a year ago. He contacted me through a secure channel, offered to provide evidence against Velker's new operation. I stared at him. Why didn't you tell me this before? Because I don't know if it was genuine or a trap. Dean ran a hand through his hair. He backed out at the last minute, said they were watching his family too closely. I thought about my father's words, I did what I had to do to protect this family, and his warning, be careful. Do you think he was telling the truth? I asked. Dean shrugged. I don't know, but I thought you should know before we go public. Once this breaks, there's no going back, for any of us. That night, as the others slept, I made one last call to my father's private line. It's me, I said when he answered. We're going public tomorrow, with everything. A long pause. Then, I know. Is it true you tried to get out? Tried to contact Dean? Another pause. Yes. Why didn't you follow through? They showed me photos of you, of Savannah, at work, at home. They had people following you both. Said it would look like accidents. His voice sounded tired, defeated. I couldn't risk it. And now it doesn't matter. I could hear ice clinking in a glass. Do what you have to do, Elizabeth. I'll face the consequences. As dawn broke, we sent everything out. Names were leaked. Evidence published. By noon, it was the top story on every major news outlet. Velker executives were being arrested. Politicians were issuing denials. My father's name was everywhere. That evening, as we watched the coverage from a safe house Maya had arranged, my phone rang. My mother. "It's all coming down," she said without preamble. "The house, the reputation, everything we built." "You built it on lies," I replied. "Perhaps." Her voice softened. "Is Savannah with you? Is she safe?" "Yes." "Good." A pause. "Your father, he turned himself in this morning, before the story broke. He's cooperating fully." I hadn't expected that. "Why?" "He said it was time to do the right thing, finally." I could hear tears in her voice, something I'd never heard before. "Take care of your sister, Elizabeth, and yourself." The line went dead. Maya entered the room, her face grim. "We need to move now. Someone leaked our location." Within minutes, we were in cars heading in different directions, Dean and Savannah with Rami, Maya and me in another vehicle. The plan was to meet at a secondary safe house in Maine near the Canadian border. As we drove through the night, Maya glanced at me. "You did the right thing," she said. "All of you." "I hope so," I replied, watching the darkness rush past. "I really hope so." The media storm that followed was unlike anything I could have imagined. For weeks, it dominated every headline, every broadcast. Private firms spied on Americans, politicians implicated in mass surveillance, ex-senator turned state's evidence. My father's face was everywhere, entering courthouses flanked by attorneys. He looked older in those photos, diminished somehow, the mighty Edwin Carrington brought low by the truth. My mother attempted damage control at first, issuing statements about my father being misled and manipulated. When that didn't work, she retreated behind the gates of the Carrington estate, refusing all interviews. I sent her one voicemail after it all broke: "You threw away your daughters for your reputation. Was it worth it?" She never responded. Dean and Savannah were placed in protective custody until the trials began. Maya disappeared entirely, even I didn't know where she went. Rami occasionally sent encrypted messages confirming they were safe. Nico's story won him a Pulitzer nomination. He gave me credit as a source, which made me both proud and terrified. For a while, I couldn't go anywhere without being recognized, approached, questioned. 3 months after the story broke, I received a call from a hospital in Maine. Savannah had gone into labor. I drove through the night to reach her, arriving just as dawn was breaking over the Atlantic. The small coastal hospital was quiet, with additional security that Maya had somehow arranged. Dean met me in the hallway, his face a mixture of exhaustion and joy. "It's a girl," he said. 7 pounds 4 ounces, perfect. In the recovery room, Savannah looked radiant despite her obvious exhaustion. In her arms, a tiny bundle with a shock of dark hair, Dean's hair. "Ellie." She smiled as I entered. "Meet your niece, Hope Elise Martinez." Tears sprang to my eyes as she placed the baby in my arms, so tiny, so perfect, so innocent of all the chaos that had surrounded her entry into the world. "Martinez?" I asked, looking at Dean. He nodded. "It's time to reclaim my real name, for her sake." A week later, a letter arrived from my mother. The envelope was heavy, expensive stationery with the Carrington crest embossed in gold. Inside was a single page in her perfect handwriting. "Elizabeth, by the time you read this, the estate will be sold. The proceeds, after legal fees, will be placed in trust for your sister's child. It seems fitting that the Carrington legacy should begin anew with her. Your father asked me to tell you he is sorry for everything. The plea deal means he will likely spend the next decade in federal custody. I will be relocating to our house in Vermont for the foreseeable future. You were right about everything. I was wrong to value reputation over my daughter's well-being. It is a mistake I will regret until my dying day. If Savannah is willing, I would like to meet my granddaughter someday. But I understand if that is not possible. With respect and regret, Mother." I read the letter twice, then set it aside. I didn't respond, not yet. Some wounds would take longer to heal than others. Dean's testimony became the centerpiece of the federal case against Velker and its offshoots. Dozens of executives, politicians, and military officials were indicted. Some pled out, others fought the charges. The full scope of Project Insight was finally exposed: the surveillance, the blackmail, the manipulation of policy and contracts worth billions. My father, true to my mother's word, accepted a plea deal, 10 years in a minimum security facility in exchange for his complete cooperation. I didn't visit him. I wasn't ready. As for Savannah, Dean, and baby Hope, they eventually settled in a small coastal town in Maine, not far from where Hope was born. The federal marshals helped create new identities for them, not a full witness protection program, but enough security to allow them to live normally. I relocated nearby, buying a small cottage with a view of the ocean, close enough to be part of their lives but giving them space to build their own family. I started writing again, not just editing others' words but creating my own, a memoir called The Truth They Buried, about family secrets, loyalty, and finding the courage to speak out. On Hope's first birthday, I drove to the Carrington estate one last time. It stood empty now, waiting for new owners. The gardens were overgrown, the fountains dry. I let myself in with my old key, walking through the silent rooms where Savannah and I had grown up. So many memories, so many rules and expectations, so much pretense. I climbed the grand staircase, the one we'd been forbidden to run down as children, and stood at the top, looking out over the entrance hall. Then I took out my phone and snapped one last photo, not for nostalgia, not for memory, but as a reminder of what we'd left behind. That evening, as we celebrated Hope's birthday with a small cake and too many presents, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number: "Package at your door." Maya, still watching over us, even from the shadows. The package contained 3 new passports and identification documents. A note read simply, "Just in case. Stay safe." Later, as Dean and Savannah put Hope to bed, I sat on the porch of their little house, watching the waves crash against the rocky Maine shoreline, so different from the manicured perfection of Richmond, so much more real. Savannah joined me, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the evening chill. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked softly. I put my arm around her, pulling her close like I used to when she was small and frightened. "I don't know," I admitted. "But whatever comes next, we'll face it together." She rested her head on my shoulder. "You know what I realized? All those years they taught us to be quiet, to be perfect, to uphold the Carrington legacy. And instead we brought it crashing down," I said with a small smile. "No." She turned to me, her eyes clear and certain. "We rebuilt it, on something real this time." As the sun set over the Atlantic, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, I thought about legacies, about the stories we tell ourselves and the truths we bury, about the choices that define us. My father had built his legacy on silence and compromise, on the illusion of perfection. We would build ours on truth.